On my mother-in-law's longevity birthday, she casually flung my bowl and chopsticks straight onto the children's table, right in front of everyone. "So what if you make a little dirty money?" she sneered. "In the Lee family, a daughter-in-law like you has no right to sit at the main table." I looked at my husband, who had been silent from beginning to end. He didn't say a single word. I picked up my bag and stood up. I left. I went back to the company, handled a multi-billion project machine issue, and, almost as an afterthought, canceled the house deposit I had paid for my mother-in-law. The next morning, the moment I turned on my phone, it exploded with calls from my husband. 99 missed calls. "V, where are you? The landlord is kicking us out. Mom is so angry she's been hospitalized." I sat in my office, sipping cold coffee, indifferent. I calmly instructed security to escort the man kneeling downstairs a little farther away. The 60th birthday banquet for my mother-in-law, Tru Zan Hua, was held at the most luxurious hotel in the city. The minimum spending per table was 5 figures. I paid for everything. I booked the hotel. Even the dark red cheongsam embroidered with gold thread that she was wearing, custom made by a master artisan, was something I had bought for her with a 6-figure sum. And yet, at this moment, she was wearing that very dress, sitting arrogantly in the seat of honor, looking at me like I was trash. Her plump finger jabbed toward my face, almost poking my nose. "Jiang Li, who gave you permission to sit here?" I had just pulled out a chair beside my husband. Li Chi-min hadn't even sat down yet when her shrill voice pierced the air. The private dining room fell instantly silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward me at once. Some were watching a spectacle. Some were mocking. Some were openly delighted by someone else's humiliation. All of them were relatives of the Lee family. A group of people I had been financially supporting for years. And yet would never be satisfied. White-eyed wolves. My hand tightened around the back of the chair. I forced myself to maintain the last shred of dignity on my face. "Don't call me Mom. I don't have a shameless daughter-in-law like you." Tru Zan Hua slammed her palm onto the table. The plates and bowls rattled violently. Her heavily powdered face twisted with rage, her cheeks and chin wobbling with flesh. "The Lee family has rules. A daughter-in-law does not sit at the main table. That table over there, that's where you belong." She pointed toward a small, low table in the corner of the room. The children's table. It had been prepared for the toddlers who were running around today. Snacks, juice boxes, tiny chairs. And I, a vice president of a publicly listed company, earning an annual salary in the millions, was being told to sit there with 3-year-olds. The humiliation rose like a tidal wave, swallowing my breath in an instant. Instinctively, I turned to look at my husband, Li Chi-min. I hoped, just hoped, that he would step forward and say something fair. After all, I was his wife. Not a slave bought into the Lee family. But he only lowered his head, his fingers scrolling rapidly across his phone screen. Like a bystander. Like none of this had anything to do with him. I stood frozen in place, listening to the whispers around me. "Oh wow, so she's some big shot in the city. But she still has to follow the rules when she marries into a family." Exactly, what's the use of a woman making money? In the end, she still has to listen to men. Look at Kai Min's mother, so imposing. One sentence and she crushes the daughter-in-law flat. Each word stabbed into my ears like needles, piercing straight into my heart. Finally, Li Chi-min sensed my icy gaze. He lifted his head, but still didn't dare look me in the eye. He leaned closer, lowered his voice, almost pleading. "Wife, just bear with it a little, okay? Today is my mom's birthday. Don't make her angry. Sitting somewhere else is still eating, right? Bear with it." Those 3 words. I'd heard them so much in 3 years of marriage that my ears had grown numb. When his relatives borrowed money, claiming it was just temporary. The money went out like a bun thrown at a dog. Never to return. He said. Their family. Just bear with it. When his mother complained that the imported fruit I bought was too expensive and threw it straight into the trash in front of me, calling me wasteful. He said. She's old, used to being frugal, just bear with it. When his sister, Lee Kai-kian, took a liking to my limited edition handbag and simply walked out of my dressing room with it. He said. She just likes it, just bear with it. Again and again, I endured. And in return, I didn't get gratitude. I got endless demands. And limitless trampling. I once thought that my sacrifices could be exchanged for Lee Kai-min's love and protection. I once believed that if I were outstanding enough, strong enough, I could warm the insecure, sensitive heart of a so-called Phoenix man. Now I realize. I was wrong. So wrong it's almost laughable. If a man is rotten to the bone, then no matter how much gold you coat him with, he's still nothing but a pile of mud. Incapable of holding shape. I looked straight into Lee Kai-min's eyes. My voice was calm, cold. Lee Chi-min, I've endured enough these past 3 years. Today, I'm done enduring. Then I turned to Tru Zhanhua. I let out a faint, dismissive laugh. I said nothing more. I picked up my bag and walked straight out of the banquet hall. Behind me, there was stunned silence. And the disbelieving stare of the man I had been married to for 3 years. Outside the hotel, the air felt cool and clean. I looked up at the sky. The weight I had carried for so long suddenly vanished. When I returned to the company, I immediately wrapped up a major project contract worth several billion. Then, without hesitation, I called the luxury real estate sales center where I had placed a deposit on a villa for my mother-in-law. This is Jiang Li. I'm canceling the reservation for Villa A08. The deposit does not need to be refunded. That night, I slept better than I had in the past 3 years. The next morning, my phone vibrated non-stop. 99 missed calls from Lee Chi-min. I calmly drank my coffee. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of my high-rise office, I looked down. A figure was kneeling in the courtyard below, waving frantically. It was Lee Chi-min. I pressed the internal line. Security? Please escort the man kneeling downstairs a bit farther away. He's affecting the company's appearance. As soon as I finished speaking, the phone on my desk rang again. This time, it was an unfamiliar number. But I was certain this was just another performance staged by the Lee family. I pressed my lips together and cut off the call. My new life had only just begun. I looked at the face I had once loved so deeply. Now, all I felt was strangeness and disgust. The light in my eyes went completely dark in that instant. Expectation turned into disbelief, then rage, and finally settled into dead, glacial frost. The room was still noisy. Seeing that I hadn't moved, Tru Zhanhua grew even more smug. She strode straight toward me, grabbed the delicate bone china tableware in front of me as if it were trash. Didn't even bother to look at it, and flung it toward the children's table in the corner. Crash. The sharp sound of shattering porcelain hit my heart like a sledgehammer. And with it, smashed the very last illusion I had about this marriage. Are you deaf? She shrieked coldly. I said your place is over there. You think earning a little money means you don't know your own surname anymore? Let me tell you this. Jiang Li, women are meant to handle the living room and the kitchen. You want to sit at the main table of the Li family? Are you worthy? That's right, Lee Kai-kian sneered from the side, piling on without hesitation. My brother makes 8,000 a month and can still support you. If we didn't pity you, who would marry a woman like you, so unfeminine? All you know is work, 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 money, money, money. I was shaking with anger. Blood rushed backward in my veins. What she didn't know, or perhaps chose not to know, was that the luxury suit Lee Chi-min was wearing, the watch worth over 100,000 on his wrist, Even the upscale apartment the entire Lee family lived in. Not a single thing wasn't paid for with my money. Even his cushy job at a state-owned enterprise had been arranged through countless favors I had pulled. I took a deep breath, forcing the burning lump in my chest down. Arguing with idiots only drags you down to their level. I spoke slowly, word by word. My voice wasn't loud, but it rang clearly throughout the room. If the rules of the Lee family are really that grand, then I, an outsider, won't stay here and offend your eyes. After that, I released my grip on the chair back, picked up the Hermes Birkin beside me, turned around, and left. My movements were so decisive that everyone froze. Go on, leave then, Tru Zhanhua reacted first, screaming after my back. If you walk out that door, don't ever come back. Li Kai-kian followed with mocking laughter. Oh, growing a backbone now? If you're so capable, don't come crawling back to beg my mother later. Li Chi-min finally panicked and chased after me, reaching for my hand. Wife, don't do this. Give me a little dignity. Please. I stepped aside and looked at him coldly. Dignity? Your dignity was crushed by your own feet the moment your mother smashed my dishes. I didn't look at him again. I walked straight toward the banquet hall doors. Behind me came Tru Zhanhua's hysterical curses. Rebellion. This is outright rebellion. If you've got the guts, don't spend a single cent of my Kai Min's money. If you've got the guts, don't come back begging us. I pushed open the heavy wooden doors and walked out without turning back. Beg you? Very soon, you'll find out exactly who ends up begging whom. I sat in the Maybach parked outside the hotel. My hands trembled slightly from lingering rage before slowly calming down. This car was a birthday gift I had bought for myself at 29. Back then, Li Chi-min had sourly complained that I was too ostentatious. Now, I only felt grateful. At least the car was in my name. I didn't start the engine immediately. I took out my phone and called my assistant. Hugh Han, book an executive suite at the Grand H Hotel. I'm heading there now. And move tomorrow's 9 a.m. meeting to tonight. Everyone involved needs to be in the company conference room in 30 minutes. The European merger has to be finalized tonight. On the other end, Hugh Han responded crisply and professionally. Yes, President Jiang, I'll arrange it immediately. I hung up. Looking at the golden sign reading, Longevity Banquet, Lee Residence, outside the hotel. I curled my lips into a cold smile. Li Chi-min. Tru Zhanhua. Your retribution begins now. I woke up in the executive suite on the top floor of the Grand H Hotel. Outside the 270-degree floor-to-ceiling windows was a dazzling night view of the entire city. Last night's meeting had been a complete success. I led the entire team through the night and secured a merger project worth several $100 million, giving the company a strategic advantage for next year's plan. The intense workload helped me temporarily forget that disgusting birthday banquet, and also allowed me to calm down completely. I took a quick shower, put on a bathrobe, and poured myself a glass of iced water. My phone screen showed dozens of missed calls, all from Li Chi-min. There was also a WeChat message sent at 2 a.m., brief and dripping with condescension. Mom has calmed down, just come back and apologize. Apologize. He wanted me to apologize to the woman who humiliated me. I stared at the message and found it absurdly laughable. What exactly gave him the illusion that I would still be the same as before? That no matter how much grievance I suffered, I would eventually bow my head for the so-called sake of family harmony? Perhaps it was my 3 years of endurance that had spoiled him, turning him into an overgrown child who didn't know his place in the world. Coldly, I pressed and held his avatar and selected delete contact. The world finally went quiet. Just as I was about to put the phone down and handle work emails, an unfamiliar number called. I answered casually. A warm, respectful voice came through. Hello, may I speak to President Jiang? I'm Xiao Wang, a real estate consultant from Star River Bay. Star River Bay. I remembered. It was advertised as one of the most high-end riverfront residential developments in the city. Back then, True Zan Hua constantly nagged me, complaining that her hometown house was small and old, dreaming day and night of living in a big apartment. Li Chi-min fanned the flames, saying his mother had suffered her whole life, and that as a daughter-in-law, I should be more filial. I'd been annoyed to the point of frustration, but thinking she was still an elder, I went to view a 4-bedroom, 180 square meter unit with an incredible view. I paid a 500,000 deposit. I planned to pay the down payment on True Zan Hua's birthday and give her the purchase contract as a longevity gift. I had even intended to put her name directly on the property ownership certificate. Looking back now, I was laughably stupid. Using my own money to buy a nest for a group of bloodsuckers, hoping they'd remember even a shred of gratitude. President Jiang, do you have time today? Xiao Wang asked eagerly. We can sign the contract now. We've already prepared the paperwork with Miss True Zan Hua's name. His excitement was obvious. This was a big deal for him. I lifted my glass, took a sip of ice water, my tone completely flat. No need. Huh? Xiao Wang froze. President Jiang, do you mean today isn't convenient? We can reschedule for tomorrow. I said patiently, clearly, repeating myself. I'm not buying the apartment anymore. Please process a refund of my deposit. The line went silent for over 10 seconds. When Xiao Wang spoke again, his voice was filled with shock. President Jiang, are you sure? This is the best unit in the entire project. If you give it up now, you won't be able to buy it again later. I'm sure. I hung up. The $1 million home was gone. I didn't know whether True Zan Hua would faint from rage when she heard the news, but what did that have to do with me? After finishing this, the burning knot in my chest loosened somewhat. But it still wasn't enough. I opened my laptop and logged into online banking. Previously, for Li Kai-min's daily expenses, and to satisfy his pitiful sense of vanity, I had given him an unlimited supplementary credit card under my account. He used it to buy himself watches, to buy gold jewelry for True Zan Hua, to buy handbags for Li Kai-kian. He spent freely and joyfully. I located that card and froze it immediately, without the slightest hesitation. After finishing everything, I finally took my time dealing with the day's work. Meanwhile, on the other side, Li Kai-min's life had descended into chaos. After the suffocating end of the banquet, he dragged True Zan Hua, furious and fuming, along with a group of relatives back home. To appease his mother and regain face in front of the relatives, he grandly decided to take everyone shopping at the most upscale mall in the city. Mom, take whatever you like, your son's paying today. Sister, this bag suits your temperament perfectly. Take it. Uncle, you like this tea set, right? Wrap it up. He pointed around the luxury counters like a king surveying his territory, basking in the flattery of his relatives. Calmly, he took out the black credit card from his wallet and handed it to the sales clerk. The clerk accepted it respectfully, but a few seconds later, awkwardly returned it. I'm sorry, sir, your card can't be processed. How is that possible? Li Kai-min's face changed instantly. Try again. I've tried several times, the clerk said cautiously. The system shows that this card has been frozen. The relatives exchanged glances. The flattering smiles from moments ago froze stiff on their faces. Li Kai-min's complexion turned the color of pig liver. Just yesterday, he had been bragging in front of these same relatives about how obedient Jiang Li was, how high his status was at home. And today, slapped in the face mercilessly in public. Ashamed and furious, he stormed out of the mall, hid in a corner, and called the bank. The hotline agent's voice was sweet yet cold. Hello, Mr. Li. The supplementary card you're inquiring about was frozen at 9:15 this morning at the request of the primary cardholder, Ms. Jiang Li. Frozen? Lee Chi-min practically roared. On what grounds does she freeze my card? He slammed the phone down and began calling me frantically. Once. Twice. 10 times. The only response was, "The number you have dialed is currently unavailable." At that moment, I was in the company conference room, presiding over a strategic discussion on a new product line. My phone was on silent beside my hand. The screen lit up again and again, then went dark, each time flashing the same 3 characters, Lee Chi-min. I didn't spare it a glance. I focused on the project manager's report, occasionally firing off sharp questions that struck straight to the core. Outside the window, the sunlight was perfect. Inside the conference room, ideas collided and sparked. My life, after leaving behind that pile of trash, seemed to have finally returned to the path it was always meant to be on. Holding the entire board in my hands, moving freely in every direction. As for the chaos in Lee Kai-min's life, it was nothing more than an insignificant interlude. A forgettable footnote in my brilliant future. The next morning, I arrived at the company early. My assistant, Hugh Han, handed me a cup of hand-brewed coffee and lowered her voice as she reported. President Jeong, there's someone in the lobby downstairs claiming to be your husband, Mr. Lee Chi-min. He's been waiting there since 7 a.m. He's extremely agitated and insists on seeing you. I took the coffee and walked to the enormous floor-to-ceiling window in my office. From the vantage point of the 38th floor, the people in the lobby looked as small as ants. With just a glance, I spotted him immediately. The man in a wrinkled suit, hair disheveled, face hollow and haggard. It was Lee Chi-min. He was being blocked by 2 tall security guards, still shouting unwillingly, drawing the attention of everyone passing by. Embarrassing. I took a sip of coffee. The rich aroma slid down my throat, and my mood lifted for no apparent reason. I don't know this person, I said calmly to Hugh Han. Have security handle it, don't let him affect the company's image. If he keeps causing trouble, call the police. Yes, President Jeong. Hugh Han left. Very quickly, the situation downstairs escalated. Through the split surveillance screen in my office, I watched the entire process clearly. Driven into a corner, Lee Chi-min began screaming hysterically. Jeong Lee, you vicious woman, get out here. On what right did you freeze my card? On what right do you keep me from going home? I'm your husband. You can't treat me like this. His voice echoed through the cavernous lobby, attracting more and more onlookers. My company employees, partner representatives, even a food delivery guy stopped to watch the spectacle. Seeing this, the security guards stopped being polite. With a clean, practiced move, they subdued him and slammed him to the ground. Lee Kai-min's face was pressed tightly against the cold, polished marble floor. His mouth still spewed incoherent curses. I stood by the window, looking down at the scene from above. My heart didn't stir at all. I even found it a little funny. This was the man I had once loved? A man who could only throw tantrums, roll on the ground, and howl helplessly. A cowardly, useless excuse for a man. I turned off the surveillance feed and opened my phone. The screen showed 99 missed calls and dozens of unread voice messages. All from Lee Chi-min. I tapped one open. His voice burst out of the speaker, mixed with anger, panic, and feral growling. Jeong Lee, are you insane? What do you mean freezing my card? Do you have any idea how much face I lost in front of my relatives? And the house. Why did the landlord suddenly say the lease won't be renewed? He says we have to move out today. You planned this a long time ago, didn't you? Only then did I remember. The upscale apartment they were living in was actually rented by me 3 years ago. The rent was paid annually. By the timeline, the lease really had expired yesterday. I'd been busy and forgot to renew it. Or maybe it wasn't that I forgot. Maybe my subconscious had long since rejected that so-called home and simply erased it. Either way, looking back now, it was a perfect coincidence. I opened the next voice message. The audio was chaotic and noisy. There were sounds of a woman crying and a man shouting. Jiang Li, get your ass back here right now. The landlord brought people to clear the place out. My mom's clothes were all thrown into the hallway. You heartless bitch. Are you trying to kill our whole family? It was true Zanhua. I could easily picture her sitting on the floor in the hallway. Skirts scattered around her, slapping her thighs and wailing. Cursing me for being an unfilial daughter-in-law. So what? Even if the police came, they'd only handle it according to the law, forcing unrelated individuals to vacate someone else's property. Throwing tantrums in front of the law was worth less than nothing. I listened to each voice message as if I were listening to a joke that had nothing to do with me. When I finished, I deleted the entire call and message history and put my phone down. Morning sunlight streamed through the glass, illuminating the polished ebony desk. A brand new day, full of energy and hope, had just begun. Those noises would soon be scattered by the wind, leaving no trace in my life. Absolutely none. Li Kai-min's voice messages evolved from angry accusations to panic, fear, and finally begging. Wife, I was wrong. Come back. We can't live without you. Mom's so angry she can barely hold on. The relatives all left. It's just the three of us standing on the street now. We don't even have a place to live. Jiang Li, I'm begging you, can you answer the phone? Just come back and everything can be discussed. Too late. I listened to everything, then selected all and deleted them, clean and decisive, like emptying the trash on a computer. I picked up the phone and called the front desk on the ground floor. Please have security escort the troublemaker away. If he comes back, tell him I don't know him. I hung up and leaned back into my comfortable ergonomic chair, letting out a long breath. Outside the window, the sky was a clear blue, as if freshly washed. Without that blood-sucking family weighing on me, even the air felt cleaner. I had thought that being evicted and slammed to the ground by security would be enough to wake Li Chi-min and his family up. Turns out, I had overestimated their intelligence and underestimated the thickness of their skin. That afternoon, I received a call from Li Kai-kian. Her shrill voice nearly pierced my eardrum. Jiang Li, you stupid, vicious, immoral bitch. You drove my mother into the hospital. If anything happens to her, I won't let you get away with it. I pulled the phone slightly away from my ear and asked flatly. Which hospital? Li Kai-kian rattled off the address, then ground her teeth as she added. You'd better crawl here immediately, with money. My mom's cerebral hemorrhage is all because you pissed her off. Medical bills, hospital fees, recovery costs, you better not miss a single cent. Cerebral hemorrhage? I nearly laughed. True Zanhua was built like an ox, 2 bowls of braised pork a day. Climbed 5 flights of stairs without panting. Getting a cerebral hemorrhage just from yesterday's incident? 99% acting. Playing the illness card. Using morality to pressure me into submission. I'd seen this trick too many times. In the past, I might have softened. I might have worried about Li Kai-min's feelings and gone to clean up the mess. But now, I only felt nauseated. Still, I decided to go. Not to reconcile, but to end everything, cleanly. I hung up and called my personal lawyer directly. Lawyer Wang. Bring the company's legal team with you. Meet me at the entrance of Third People's Hospital in 30 minutes. An hour later, I arrived at the inpatient wing of Third People's Hospital with a group of sharply dressed lawyers. Our presence overwhelming. The moment I reached the ward entrance, I was surrounded by members of the Li family. Every one of them stared at me with venom, pointing and whispering. That's her, the white-eyed wolf who sent the old woman to the hospital. HMPH, she looks respectable enough. Who knew her heart was so poisonous? What's the point of all that education? She doesn't even know how to respect elders, wasted on dog food. Lee Kai-kian lunged forward like a rabid hen, raising her hand to slap me. You still dare show up? I'll beat you to death. Her hand hadn't even fallen when it was stopped mid-air by a shadow. A bodyguard behind me, nearly 2 meters tall, muscles taut, blocked her effortlessly. I had hired him temporarily from a security company, precisely to prevent these people from getting physical. With just a light shove, Lee Kai-kian staggered back several steps and fell hard onto the ground. Ow! She immediately began rolling around and screaming. They're hitting people. The rich are hitting people. There's no justice anymore. I couldn't even be bothered to react. I glanced at her indifferently and pushed open the ward door. The sharp smell of disinfectant hit my nose. On the hospital bed, Tru Zhanhua lay wearing an oxygen mask, eyes closed, looking as if she were at death's door. Li Chi-min sat beside the bed, eyes red. When he saw me enter, his expression twisted, half relief, half hatred, as he sprang to his feet. You finally came, he said hoarsely. Hurry up and pay the hospital fees. Are you trying to anger my mother to death? He pointed straight at me, as if I were the ultimate villain. I looked at his face coldly and found it absurd. Hospital fees? I curled my lips into a faint smile. Li Chi-min, we're about to get divorced. She's your mother, not mine. I'm not paying a single cent. Divorce? Li Chi-min looked like he'd been struck by lightning. What did you say? Divorce? Who agreed to that? It was just a little thing at the birthday banquet. Jiang Li, you're making a big deal out of nothing. He didn't understand. And he couldn't accept it. In his eyes, it was a small matter. Of course. To him, my dignity and my feelings had always been small matters. Only his face. Only his mother's emotions. Those were matters as big as the sky. My words detonated like a bomb in the ward. Tru Zhanhua, who had been half dead on the bed just moments ago, shot upright the moment she heard the word divorce. She ripped off the oxygen mask and screamed at me with full vigor. No divorce. I don't agree. You spent so much of my Kai-min's money. And now you think you can just kick him away? Dream on. I'm telling you this, Jiang Li. As long as this old woman is still breathing, you won't get divorced. You'll be part of the Li family for life. And even in death, you'll be a ghost of the Li family. That frenzied, hysterical look, how did it resemble someone suffering from a cerebral hemorrhage at all? Exposed on the spot for faking illness, she not only showed no shame, but grew even more brazen. I watched the mother and son, my stomach twisting in waves of nausea. I didn't bother wasting words anymore. I took a thick stack of documents from Lawyer Vong's hand and flung it straight at Lee Kai-min's face. The papers scattered across the floor like falling snow. These are the complete records of every single expense I paid for each member of your Li family over the past several years. I said coldly, every amount precise to 2 decimal places. From your mother's monthly pension, to your niece's tutoring fees, to loans taken out by distant relatives who shouldn't have anything to do with us at all. The total comes to 3.778.647 yuan. My voice was calm, flat, almost emotionless, but the hospital room fell instantly silent. Li Chi-min and Tru Zhanhua were stunned. They hadn't expected me to keep accounts this meticulously. I looked down at Li Chi-min. His face drained of all color, and dropped the final bomb. Li Chi-min, you now have 2 choices. First, a mutual divorce. I won't pursue anything further. This money, I'll write it off. We part peacefully. Second, no divorce. I paused, my smile turning even colder. Then I will sue you for marital property embezzlement and fraud. You used my connections to extract benefits from my company's partners. You know exactly how much you gained. I have full evidence. Once a case is filed, you won't just go to prison, you'll also have to return every cent you took. Principal and interest included. Choose. When I finished speaking, the room sank into a deathly silence. Li Chi-min stared blankly at the papers strewn across the floor. Black words on white pages clearly documenting the greed and misconduct of him and his family. His complexion shifted from pale to ashen gray. He knew perfectly well that I wasn't bluffing. With my resources and influence, sending him to prison would be effortless. Tru Zanhua was dizzy as well. The crude cunning of a rural woman crumbled completely before absolute power and airtight legal clauses, too weak to withstand even a single blow. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. After a full minute of silence, Tru Zanhua's darting eyes suddenly lit up. Her expression flipped a full 180 degrees, from unreasonable arrogance to calculating slyness. Fine, divorce it is. Who's afraid of whom? She snapped, slapping her thigh loudly, her voice booming again. But let's make this clear, if you divorce, marital property must be split evenly. Your annual salary is 4 million. 3 years is 12 million. Half of that, 6 million, goes to Chi-min. That's not excessive, is it? Li Kai-kian finally snapped out of it too. She scrambled up from the floor and rushed in to echo her mother. That's right, and the house and the car. Even if the apartment you live in is rented. That Mercedes was bought after marriage, wasn't it? That needs to be split. And your company shares, your stock options, all assets acquired during marriage must be divided. The entire family turned instantly, like sharks catching the scent of blood, baring their greedy fangs. Since they couldn't keep me as their long-term meal ticket anymore, they were determined to tear off a huge chunk of flesh before everything fell apart. Li Chi-min was still reeling from the shock of divorce. But at the mention of 6 million in assets, his eyes began to flicker with greed. He didn't object to his mother or sister, silent acquiescence. I watched these clowns jumping around as if watching a farce. I couldn't even be bothered to speak myself. I merely glanced at Lawyer Vong. He understood immediately. Stepping forward, he pushed up the gold-rimmed glasses on his nose and spoke in a professional, icy tone. According to marriage law, premarital assets are not subject to division. Most of Ms. Jiang's income is paid in the form of stock options. These options were signed before the marriage and constitute premarital personal property. Additionally, most assets under Ms. Jiang's name have been separated through family trust structures and do not qualify as marital property. He paused, then looked at Li Chi-min with a hint of pity. As for the Mercedes, sorry, Mr. Li, that vehicle is registered under a company in which Ms. Jiang holds controlling shares. It is a corporate asset, not personal property. Each sentence landed like a sledgehammer on the Li family's hearts. Tru Zanhua's face grew uglier by the second. Li Kai-kian's mouth hung open wide enough to fit an egg. That's impossible, Tru Zanhua screamed. She's that rich, how can our family not get a single cent? You're all colluding to bully honest people. I finally laughed. I stepped in front of Li Chi-min, looking at his bloodless face, and gently delivered the final stab. Li Chi-min, not only will you get nothing, you'll also owe me money. Have you forgotten? 3 years ago, you speculated in stocks and lost 800 yuan. I covered that loss for you. There are bank transfers. There's a promissory note you personally wrote. Legally, that is your personal debt. After divorce, you must repay it in full. 800,000. Li Chi-min went limp and collapsed to the floor. Unemployed, cards frozen, not even 800 yuan on him. How could he repay 800,000? Despair flooded over him like a tide. Finally, he understood how serious this was. With a dull thud, he dropped to his knees in front of me, clutching my calf tightly. I was wrong, I really know I was wrong. He sobbed, tears and mucus streaming, dignity completely gone. Please don't divorce me, it's all my mother's fault. I was weak, give me one more chance. We were husband and wife, there has to be some feeling left. His hands were cold and wet. The moment they touched my leg, a wave of nausea rose instinctively. I kicked his hands away and stepped back in disgust. Don't touch my shoes with your filthy hands. These are limited edition Jimmy Choos. First wear, 5 figures. You're not worthy. The Lee family obviously wasn't going to give up that easily. Hard tactics failed, so they switched to soft ones. Or rather, dirty ones. The next morning, an eye-searing spectacle appeared downstairs at my company building. Tru Zhanhua and Lee Kai-kian each held a white banner and sat squarely in front of the entrance. On the banners, written in crooked red paint, were huge characters. Jiang Li is vicious and heartless. Drove her mother-in-law to death. Abandoned her husband, heaven and earth will not tolerate her. Vice president of a listed company commits marital infidelity. Abuses family, return our blood and sweat. Tru Zhanhua sat on a low plastic stool, slapping her thighs and wailing theatrically, her voice rising and falling like an opera, casting herself as a pitiful old mother forced into desperation by a cruel daughter-in-law. Lee Kai-kian went even further. She started a live stream. Facing the camera, she cried as if it were pouring rain, sobbing while listing my crimes. Everyone, please judge for us. My sister-in-law makes millions a year. Once she got rich, she turned bad, despised us for being rural, looked down on my mother. At yesterday's birthday banquet she humiliated my mom in front of all the relatives. And now she wants a divorce. She won't give us a single cent. My poor mother was so angry she was hospitalized. And she still refuses to pay medical bills. She even brought a team of lawyers to threaten us. Now we don't even have a place to live, we're homeless. Her performance was flawless. Very quickly, she drew a crowd of passers-by and a flood of online sympathy. The live stream comments were full of curses directed at me. This woman is pure evil. Treating her mother-in-law like that, you never know what someone's really like. Expose her, ruin her. Li Chi-min hid among the crowd not far away. Watching with visible satisfaction, he believed public opinion was the killing blow. I held a high position. Reputation mattered most to me. As long as my career was threatened, I'd obediently bow my head and pay to make it go away. Even colleagues in my company began whispering. The board of directors called, urging me to handle my family issues quickly and not affect the stock price. The pressure was unlike anything before. But I was no longer the soft persimmon from 3 years ago. To be squeezed at will. I didn't panic. I didn't go outside to argue. I simply instructed the technical department to connect the largest LED screen in the lobby. Then I called the hotel manager. Half an hour later, a high-definition video played on loop on the massive screen. It was the banquet hall footage from Tru Zhanhua's 60th birthday. Her vicious, twisted face filled the screen. The way she pointed at my nose and cursed. The way she smashed my carefully prepared tableware onto the children's table. Everything was recorded clearly. Then came Lee Chi-min standing stiffly like a wooden statue. Then me walking away. Then them jeering behind my back. No sound, but the images said everything. The crowd in front of my building gradually stopped moving. The once curious gazes shifted into looks of contempt aimed at the Lee mother and daughter. Lee Kai-kian's livestream was still running, but the comments had flipped completely. Wait, this doesn't match her story. That mother-in-law looks vicious as hell. Who abused whom, really? And that husband, his wife gets humiliated and he just stands there? What a coward. Money spent first is money spent wisely. Luckily, this wife had cameras as her insurance. Lee Kai-kian panicked and hurriedly shut down the livestream, but it was already too late. Clips cut from her livestream, along with the hotel surveillance footage, were uploaded to social media by someone quick-handed. Within just 1 hour, the hashtag, "The Truth Behind the Daughter-in-Law Abuse Scandal," shot straight to the top of trending searches. I stood behind the floor-to-ceiling windows of my high-rise office, looking down at the chaos below. Tru Zhanhua and Lee Kai-kian were surrounded by a crowd, being pointed at and questioned. Flustered, they tried to roll up their banners and slip away, but reporters, whom I had quietly invited, blocked their path. Lee Chi-min emerged from the crowd, his face pale, trying to drag his mother and sister away, but he was stopped. I gently set my coffee cup down. The show was over. I turned back to my desk, opened my email, and drafted the final lawsuit to send to lawyer Vong, suing Lee Chi-min and his family for public humiliation, defamation, and intentional damage to my reputation. This time, I would not give them any chance to crawl back. My real new life was only just beginning. In the video, Lee Chi-min could clearly be seen lowering his head, playing on his phone, coldly telling me to watch myself. The sneering faces of the relatives and my resolute back as I walked away formed a stark contrast. I picked up the microphone and calmly stepped out of the company entrance. Every gaze instantly locked onto me. I walked up to Tru Zhanhua, shocked into silence. She stopped wailing. I held the microphone in front of her mouth, maintaining a polite smile. "Mrs. Tru," I asked, "is this what you call abuse? Is this the Lee family's code of conduct?" The crowd watching on site, and netizens in the livestream, exploded the moment they saw the footage. So it was the mother-in-law all along. This old woman is vicious. Who throws someone else's dishes like that? And that husband, his wife gets humiliated and he doesn't say a word? What a useless coward. If I were her, I'd have divorced long ago. The people who had just been sympathizing with Lee Kai-kian instantly turned their fire on the Lee family. Tru Zhanhua and Lee Kai-kian's faces alternated between red and white, as if splashed with paint. Even in their wildest dreams, they hadn't imagined I still had a trump card. Just then, several police cars arrived with sirens blaring. I had called the police. "Officer," I said calmly, "these two individuals hung banners in a public place, fabricated accusations, severely disrupted our company's operations, and seriously damaged my personal reputation. This constitutes suspected disturbance of public order." After reviewing the situation and watching the video, the police showed no leniency. They directly hauled away Tru Zhanhua, still throwing a tantrum on the ground, and the trembling Lee Kai-kian, stuffing them into the police car. I walked up to Lee Chi-min, who was hiding behind the crowd, trying to sneak away, and called out to him. He froze, not daring to look at me. I stared at his pitiful, stray dog appearance and coldly tossed out a sentence. "Get ready to receive your court summons." Turning around, I walked back into the building to continue my business empire, under the respectful gazes of my colleagues. At this point, the curtain had fully fallen. Lee Chi-min probably thought that as long as he avoided me, the divorce lawsuit could drag on indefinitely. He was naive. I didn't just want a divorce. I wanted him to pay the highest possible price for his stupidity and greed. The day after the farce ended, I called President Vong, the general manager of the state-owned enterprise where Lee Chi-min worked. 3 years ago, it was through my introduction that his company landed a major contract from our group, sending his career soaring. In return, he had arranged a cushy department for my useless husband, with a salary far beyond his abilities. As soon as the call connected, I got straight to the point. "President Vong, long time no see. I have a personal matter to discuss. I'm in the process of divorcing Lee Chi-min. From now on, he has no relationship with me or with our company." I didn't say another word, but President Vong was a smart man. "Rest assured, President Jiang," he replied immediately, "we'll handle everything according to procedure and regulations." After hanging up, I no longer thought about it. I knew President Vong would handle it even better than I expected. Sure enough, that very afternoon, Lee Chi-min was unceremoniously fired. He returned to his desk to find all his personal belongings stuffed into a cardboard box and tossed into a corner. The department head called him in for a talk. His tone was polite, but his words were icy. "Chi-min, you've been with the company for 3 years now. Your performance hasn't improved, and younger employees are outperforming you. Previously, the company took care of you out of respect for President Jiang. Given the circumstances, it'd be best if you submit a resignation yourself. That way, everyone saves face." Lee Chi-min begged, promising he'd work harder. The manager only shook his head, patted his shoulder, and called security to escort him out. Dragged out of the building he'd worked in for 3 years by 2 guards. Lee Chi-min completely collapsed. He had lost his final source of income. At the same time, my lawyer's letter was delivered to his temporary residence, a cramped rental room less than 10 square meters. The envelope contained not only the divorce lawsuit, but also a formal notice demanding repayment of the 800 yuan debt. Meanwhile, Tru Zhanhua and Lee Kai-kian were administratively detained for 15 days for disturbing public order. When they finally emerged from detention, gray-faced and disheveled, the good news waiting for them was that their son and brother was unemployed and burdened with an enormous debt. The 3 of them squeezed into the dark, damp, foul-smelling rental room, staring at one another in silence. Soon, the suffocating air shattered under furious shouting. "This is all your fault. You old hag who just won't die." Lee Chi-min exploded, dumping all his resentment onto his mother. "If you hadn't gone to her company to make a scene, would I have lost my job? You unfilial bastard, you dare curse me?" Tru Zhanhua screamed back. "Who was I doing it for? Wasn't it for you? If you weren't useless enough to lose your wife, would she have run away? And that's because your sister was whispering poison in your ear every day." Lee Chi-min turned on Lee Kai-kian. "If you hadn't been bad-mouthing Jiang Li non-stop, telling us to teach her a lesson, would things have ended like this?" Lee Kai-kian was left speechless. Smack. A sharp slap landed squarely on her face. Lee Chi-min had hit her. A man who groveled outside finally unleashed all his pent-up rage and helplessness onto his own family. The rental room instantly turned into a vicious dog-eat-dog fight. I didn't witness it firsthand. A private investigator I hired sent me the update, along with a few blurry photos of them tearing at each other's hair. Sitting in my spacious, bright office, I looked at the photos on my phone and felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. Evil begets evil. The wicked always meet their reckoning. I wanted to strip them of every means of survival, cut off every escape route, and then stand calmly aside, watching them collapse from within, dragging each other into the abyss through their own greed and stupidity. Compared to slapping them myself, this was far more satisfying. In the days that followed, Lee Chi-min fell into total desperation. No job, no money, an 800 yuan debt hanging over him. He tried everything to reach me: calls, messages, waiting outside my home, blocking me at my company. But I had professional bodyguards and a driver. He couldn't even get close to my car. Finally, on a rainy night, he came up with the stupidest idea yet. Somehow, he got hold of my license plate number and lay in wait in the underground parking garage of my villa. As I got out of the car and headed toward the elevator, he suddenly lunged out from behind a pillar, blocking my path. It had only been a few days, but he looked like a completely different person. Stubble covered his face, his eye sockets were sunken, and the once luxury shirt he wore was filthy and reeking. He looked like a beggar. With a thud, he dropped to his knees. Rain soaked his hair and clothes, making him look even more miserable. "I was wrong, please forgive me," he cried, slapping his own face again and again. Smack, smack, smack. Each slap landed heavy and loud. "It's all my fault. I'm a bastard. I shouldn't have listened to my mother. I shouldn't have been cold to you. I've already sent her back to the countryside. I've cut off ties with her. Please, let's start over. Okay?" He tried to play the emotional card, desperately attempting to stir the last shred of pity in me. Crying, he recounted memories from our college days, our first date by the campus lake. When I said I'd never marry anyone but him, the time he was sick and I stayed up 3 days and nights caring for him. We had so many beautiful memories. How can it all just end? Listening to him, my stomach churned with nausea. Yes. I had once loved him that much. I loved him so deeply that I lowered my pride for him. Endured the absurdity and cruelty of his family. I loved him so much that I poured every resource I had into supporting him, helping him, hoping only that he could live with a bit more dignity. But what did my love get in return? Just that light, indifferent sentence, "Watch yourself," when I was being humiliated. I looked at him coldly, as if I were staring at a complete stranger. "Enough of your cheap tears and clumsy acting, Lee Chi-min," I said flatly. Back then, I was blind. Now my eyes are healed. My indifference drove him completely insane. Seeing that softness no longer worked, the pitiful expression on his face vanished in an instant, replaced by ferocity and madness. He sprang to his feet and pulled a gleaming fruit knife from inside his jacket. "Jiang Li," he screamed himself hoarse. "If you won't let me live, then I won't let you live either. Today, we die here together." He raised the knife and charged straight at me. I instinctively stepped back, but there wasn't a trace of panic on my face. Because at the exact moment he lunged forward, a dark figure shot out from behind me. With a clean, efficient shoulder throw, he slammed Lee Chi-min hard to the ground. "My bodyguard," I thought calmly. Did he really think I wouldn't prepare for this? Knowing full well he'd resort to desperate measures. How could I come without protection? Clang! The knife hit the ground. Lee Chi-min's arms were twisted behind his back as the bodyguard pinned him down. His face smashed against the concrete, completely unable to move. I walked over and stood before him, looking down at his face contorted with pain and unwillingness. Originally, I had only planned to let him go bankrupt, drown in debt, and live like a dog. Now it seemed I had been far too merciful. "Lee Chi-min," I said softly, "congratulations, you're going to prison. Very soon." Police sirens wailed again as squad cars rushed over. This time, the reason for taking Lee Chi-min away was no longer a simple civil dispute, but armed assault. Attempted murder was a criminal case. As the red and blue lights of the police cars disappeared into the distance, I adjusted my collar that had been tousled by the wind and took out my phone to call Lawyer Vong. "Lawyer Vong," I said calmly, "there was a small incident just now. My ex-husband threatened me with a knife. You handle everything from here. Remember, no mediation, no settlement, and absolutely no withdrawal of charges. I want him in prison. Maximum sentence." After Lee Chi-min was arrested, the sky over the Lee family officially collapsed. Back in the countryside, Tru Zanhua quickly heard the news. Her only son, the pillar she had relied on for half her life, had been arrested and sent to jail. The news struck her like a bolt of lightning. Overnight, she seemed to age 20 years. She wanted to rush to the city to find me, to make a scene, to beg me to show mercy and spare her son just this once. But after turning the house upside down, she couldn't even scrape together enough money for a single train ticket. Relatives who used to freeload meals at her place now avoided her like the plague. The villagers, having seen the livestream incident earlier, all knew exactly what kind of mother-in-law she was. Behind her back, people mocked her mercilessly. She deserved it. She brought this on herself. She personally chased away a daughter-in-law worth her weight in gold. At village banquets, she became a laughingstock. "Oh, Mrs. True, why aren't you sitting at the main table today? I heard your family has rules too. Mother-in-laws aren't allowed at the main table. Right?" Each whisper cut into Tru Zanhua's heart like a knife. Even more despairing was what happened next. Her daughter, Lee Kai-kian, after learning that her brother was beyond saving and afraid of being dragged into debt, stole the last bit of her mother's retirement money hidden under the bed and fled overnight, never to be heard from again. Abandoned, betrayed, reduced to utter poverty. In the end, Tru Zanhua fell seriously ill. A stroke left half her body paralyzed, and she lay bedridden. She lay in that old, dark, damp, moldy house, unable to control her bladder or bowels. Her body reeking. There was no one to bring her water or food. Occasionally, a kind neighbor would take pity and bring her a bowl of rice. She couldn't move at all. During rare moments of clarity, she began to remember how Jiang Li had treated her in the past. Booking her appointments at the most high-end medical checkup centers, buying imported health supplements without hesitation, sitting patiently, listening to her ramble on endlessly. And how had she repaid Jiang Li? Endless regret coiled around her heart like a venomous snake, gnawing at her day and night. She cried day after day, night after night, until her eyesight nearly failed. Then one day, I received a call from the village committee back home. They said Tru Zanhua was dying, and before she passed, she wanted to see me one last time. I held the phone in silence for a moment, then replied indifferently with 4 words. I'm not free. When she dies, notify me. I'm not a saint. I have no interest in watching someone who once stabbed me in the heart put on a belated repentance show. Her karma was created by her own hands. It has nothing to do with me. I hung up. At that moment, I was standing at a cliffside hotel in Bali, gazing at the seamless blue of sea and sky, enjoying my life. As for Tru Zanhua, who was she? I no longer remembered. The divorce lawsuit between Li Chi-min and me went unexpectedly smoothly. Because his act of attacking someone with a knife was extremely serious. The court's judgment fully favored me. On the day of the hearing, I didn't even attend. I authorized lawyer Vong to handle everything. I couldn't be bothered to look at that family one more time. The ruling was issued quickly. The court approved the divorce. All marital property was divided strictly according to my requests. The house purchased before marriage, paid in full, belonged solely to me. Stock options, trust fund assets, corporate equity, all had nothing to do with him. The court also ruled that during the marriage, Li Chi-min had intentionally squandered joint assets and had committed acts of violent threats against me. In the end, not only did he receive not a single cent, he was also ordered to repay the 800,000 yuan I had previously paid off for his debt. Li Chi-min received the verdict while in detention. It was said he collapsed on the spot, wailing hysterically, nearly passing out. As for me, holding the divorce certificate in my hand, I felt an almost eerie calm. I posted on my social feed, just 4 words. Single, available. Attached was a photo of the red divorce certificate. My feed exploded instantly. In just minutes, likes and comments exceeded 300. Some expressed regret, some congratulated me, but far more were young elites and big-shot business figures, immediately sensing opportunity and sliding into my private messages. I replied to none of them. I drove my Maybach straight toward the sea. I removed the wedding ring from my ring finger, the thing I once treasured like a sacred relic. Back then, Li Chi-min had saved up half a year's salary to buy it for me. It was small and ordinary, but I had worn it with pure happiness. I looked at the ring and remembered our past sweetness. The humiliation at the birthday banquet. Him kneeling at my feet. The moment he raised the knife in madness. All love and hatred dissolved into nothing in that instant. I raised my hand and hurled the ring forcefully into the roaring sea. Goodbye to my foolish past. Goodbye to the Jiang Li who once humbled herself to dust for love. Just then, my phone rang. It was the chairman of the board. Jiang Li, he said with a laugh. Congratulations on being single again. And congratulations on one more thing. The board has unanimously approved your appointment as CEO of the China region. Effective immediately. Promotion, pay raise, old history sealed away. I looked toward the distant horizon, where sunlight pierced through the clouds, casting a brilliant golden glow. My life was only just beginning. Years later, Li Chi-min was released from prison. Those years behind bars had crushed him completely. With a criminal record, he couldn't find any decent job and could only work at construction sites hauling bricks. Every day he was exhausted like a dead dog, earning barely over 100 yuan in wages. Often, so tired he couldn't even straighten his back, he would think of the past. The days when Jiang Li casually transferred him hundreds of thousands as pocket money. The days he drove a Maybach around, showing off in front of friends. The days he lived in a spacious, Sunlit riverside apartment, barking orders at Jiang Li with a snap of his fingers. The life that had once been in his hands, one he never cherished, had now become a paradise so distant he didn't even dare dream of it. That psychological devastation hurt him far more than physical labor ever could. Once, on the street, he saw my motorcade. Several black luxury cars, escorted by bodyguards, sped past. Instinctively, like a rat spotting a cat, he ducked into a shadowed corner, lowering his filthy head, afraid I might see how utterly miserable he had become. As for Tru Zanhua, she died in that wretched rental room in the second year after I received my divorce certificate. It was said she starved to death. Her body wasn't discovered until it began to rot. Li Kai-kian reportedly took the stolen money, married a gambling addict, and lived a life worse than death, beaten daily. The entire family became the most notorious cautionary tale within 10 miles. Whenever parents disciplined their sons or married off their daughters, they would always end with one sentence. Whatever you do, don't be like the Li family, pushing the god of wealth out the door with your own hands. You reap what you sow. There is no love without reason in this world, nor is there any entitlement that comes without consequence. One ordinary afternoon after getting off work, Li Chi-min dragged his exhausted body past a roadside newspaper stand. On the rack, a financial magazine sat neatly in the most prominent spot. On the cover was a woman in a gray suit, her hair tied back cleanly, her gaze sharp and composed. The bold headline stood out unmistakably. Jiang Li, the youngest female CEO of the China region at X Group. A new symbol of power and resolve. Li Chi-min froze. He stared at it for a long time, so long that the newspaper vendor grew impatient and cleared his throat. In the photo, Jiang Li wore a faint, restrained smile. Behind her rose the towering headquarters of the group. That world, a world he had once entered, once touched, was something he had personally pushed himself out of. He remembered her last words to him. Get ready to receive a court summons. Back then, he hadn't believed it. Now, he did. Li Chi-min lowered his head and quietly walked away. He didn't buy the magazine. He didn't dare look at it again. His thin, hunched back quickly disappeared into the crowd, so insignificant that no one noticed. At the same time, in another city, I finished a meeting and signed off on the expansion plan for a new market. The young assistant standing beside me looked at me with unconcealed admiration. President Jiang, there's a dinner tonight with the board's partners. And later, a charity auction. I nodded and stood up, slipping on my coat. Outside the glass wall, the city lights flickered on, brilliant and alive. I looked at my reflection in the glass, confident, steady, not a single crack left from the past. Someone once asked me, if you could go back, would you regret loving the wrong person? I only smiled. There was no such thing as loving the wrong person. There was only waking up early, or waking up late. Without those 3 years, I would never have learned that. Kindness should never be given to the wrong people. Endurance is not a virtue in marriage. And once a woman stands firmly on her own feet, no one can drag her down again. I took out my phone and deleted the very last old number still left in my contacts. No hatred. No resentment. Just no longer relevant. I stepped out of the office. My heels clicked rhythmically against the marble floor. The life of Jiang Li. From this moment on, only moves upward. That's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to China Story Tales, and stay tuned for more stories.